Yep, we're good. You're good to go.
Okay. Okay. Well, hello everyone. My name is Agustín Martínez Fayó. I am the maintainer of the SPIRE project. And well, as Umar said, I will talk today about the introduction of the Windows support in SPIRE. Windows support has been a request for a long time. And well, it's now time to make it a reality. So let's see first what are the operating systems that currently are supported in SPIRE. At this time, SPIRE can be built and run on Mac OS, Linux, and BSD platforms. But artifacts are currently only published for Linux. The artifacts are the set of binaries and configurations that we publish when we make a release. And what does it mean with to add Windows support? What will happen when we have Windows support is that SPIRE will be able to be built and also run on Windows, and we will also publish a new set of artifacts for Windows when we make a new release. So you will find Windows binaries and the configurations also for the Windows platform. So let's talk a little bit about what are the main challenges that we are having in this support. So you may wonder why we didn't add Windows support earlier, considering that since SPIRE is written in Go, it should be like pretty straightforward to just build SPIRE on Windows, and that's it. Well, it turns out that as with any complex project, it's not that easy because as soon as you have features that leverage system calls, there are chances that the same system call is not implemented or is not available in all the platforms. One of those platform-specific implementations is the mechanisms that we have to obtain the process ID of the calling process of the workload API. So let's provide some background of this. The workload API is exposed by the SPIRE agent, and it allows workloads to go through an attestation process to get their identity. This is done without the need to provide any credentials by the workload. And in order to do that and attest the workload, workload attestors need the process ID of the calling process. The component in SPIRE that resolves the process ID and handles attestation, or more specifically, like the attestation security for the workload API is what we call the peer tracker package, which calls some platform-specific functions to do the resolution of the local process ID. So we had that resolved when using Unix domain sockets on Unix platforms, and like Linux, Darwin, and BSDs. But when we look at how this would be implemented on Windows, we found that the system call to get the process ID from the calling peer in a Unix domain socket was not really implemented on Windows. So we had to look at some alternative ways. We found that we could do something similar in Windows if the socket is a TCP socket instead of a Unix domain socket. And since the SPIFFE workload endpoint specification says that it may be exposed as either a Unix domain socket or a TCP listen socket, we found this as a viable solution. The specification does say that the implementation should prefer UDS transport. However, TCP is supported for implementations in which Unix domain sockets are impractical or impossible, which is exactly the case on Windows. You know, we take seriously the security of any new feature in SPIRE, and particularly in this case, where we are talking about the security properties of the workload attestation process, which is like the first line of defense in SPIRE, and our threat model considers workloads calling the workload API like wholly untrusted. We thought a lot about the implications of exposing the endpoint as a TCP socket in Windows. The first obvious security measure is to have it exposed only in localhost, to have a strong authentication of the workload based on the source IP address. Also, well, in particular, we spent a lot of time investigating mitigation for PID races and reuse of PIDs, which in this case, like, is a major concern in the attestation process. Well, finally, we are confident that we could put the proper security controls to ensure the security of all this process in a similar way that we already have on Unix platforms. So yeah, that's about the challenges around the workload attestation process. there are many other aspects when supporting a new platform. But the other one that also means a lot of work is reviewing all the plugins, both in the server side and the agent side, to see what's the behavior on Windows, what changes are needed in the code, to have platform specific code if it is needed, if we need to adjust the configuration or make recommendations in the documentation based on the platform. All that it's a lot of work, and Marco Jacob already has been working on that, and that's also one of the things that will keep us busy for the Windows support. So let's see. I said that we will expose the workflow API with the TCP socket on Windows. We're trying to have a consistent experience across all the platforms. So if you're already familiar operating SPIRE, running it on Windows should not have any surprising behavior. The idea is to introduce this Windows support as experimental. That would provide us some flexibility in the way that we can introduce the changes in the first iterations. I think also considering the maturity level of the project, that we already have in Unix platforms, it would be difficult to provide like a similar parity level with Windows since the beginning. And I think that it makes more sense to be clear that the Windows support is still growing, and at the same time, this would allow us to like incremental steps toward having the same level of support that we already have for other platforms. So this is one of the things that you will see on Windows. You will, instead of configuring a UDS socket for the agent, you will be configuring a TCP socket port. It will always listen in the local host, so you only configure the local port. Well, let's have a preview of how running SPIRE on Windows looks like. We have here the server and the agent. We have the Unix workload desktop configured, but obviously failed. But we can see that the PID of the calling process was resolved. Well, talking about specifically what's like the current state of this, we merged recently the work related with the peer tracker that I talked about. I'm personally working on a PR to expose the TCP endpoint in the agent and be able to configure that. That we should be able to have that shortly, and then having a Windows workload attester. And we need to, like I said, we need to review and investigate what are the changes in all the existing attestors and all the plugin types that we have in Windows. So yeah, that's what I have. Not sure if there are questions that I can answer.
I think there were a couple of questions that I think Cole tried to answer already about domain sockets. I don't know if you can see them. The thread.
Also, yeah, I was not looking at the chat window.
Yeah, so I wanted to confirm that Windows doesn't support the SPIRE cred, right?
Exactly,
And then,
yeah. That's the
okay.
main
Oh, yeah. And Andrew also responded here. Good.
Right. Thank you, Andrew. Any other questions for Agustín? Anyone looking to use SPIRE in a Windows environment? When would this be available, Agustín?
Yeah, so like I said, I think like in the upcoming, so we just merged one of the core pieces that we are that is a prerequisite for the coming work. We are having a release of SPIRE shortly. This will not have anything exposed about SPIRE, but I think that following the next releases, we will start seeing Windows support exposed to users.
Cool. Any other questions?
Hey folks, a quick one from me. Can everybody hear me?
Yep. Hey, Jay.
Hey everyone, good to see everybody again. I just had a quick, a very naive question about the SPIFFE specification itself, and to what extent, if any, that needs to be updated now that we're contemplating a workload API over TCP support. Does the spec already accommodate that? Do the client libraries already accommodate that? I'm curious if there's any work that needs to go on there to make,
Yeah, so the SPIFFE workload endpoint spec already talks about the TCP support. It does recommend the use of UDS whenever it is possible, but it does mention the TCP case for the platform where it is not possible to have the endpoint exposed as UDS socket, which is the case of Windows. And it makes it clear that you need to be able to authenticate like the source, the calling process with the source IP, and that is something that we can do it on Windows.
Gotcha. That's really helpful. And is it fair to say that the client libraries like the Go, the Java, the C client libraries will presumably need to update them to support TCP-based access, or is that something we get for free out of gRPC?
Yeah, I haven't looked at what are the changes like we would need to do in Go SPIFFE, for example. I guess depending on the platform, also what's the default endpoint, things like that. But I don't think that we will need like a lot of changes in the libraries.
I think we're good as far as Go SPIFFE. We already get kind of all the stuff underneath the covers for dialing to TCP endpoints with the gRPC Go library. I don't know about Java. I don't know about C++. So.
Gotcha. Well, that's helpful. Thank you. This is exciting. Great to see.